Yeah, I'm sure that this guy won't then turn around and like, I don't know, do another acquisition or something in an effort to desperately bring up the
Our main story tonight concerns airplanes, the place you go to say, I'll get some reading done before watching 9 episodes of The Office you've already seen and landing in Tucson. Planes make many of us nervous, even though commercial air travel is the safest form of mass transportation. But accidents do happen, and there was one recently that got a lot of attention.
Passengers are sharing their terrifying experience on board an Alaskan Airlines plane that lost a door plug during flight.
What was supposed to be a short trip from Portland to Ontario, California for Garrett Cunningham turned out to be one of the most frightening experiences of his life.
A gush of air. I looked to my left, and part of the plane is gone. My brain couldn't compute what I was looking at.
Yeah, of course it couldn't. Our minds filter out things that shouldn't make sense. Mine, for instance, refuses to acknowledge that tomatoes are fruits or that the shoe bill isn't extinct. Does that really look like something that should exist at the same time as the iPad? I think not. Now, thankfully, that flight landed safely with only a few injuries, but experts say that that was mostly luck. For one thing, if someone had been sitting in the window seat with their seatbelt off, they could have been...
That was a funny-ass fucking joke. I know I didn't laugh because I'm eating, but the shoe bill, that's great comedy writing, dude. I can appreciate that. You gotta be sarcastic right now? No, I think that's a phenomenal joke. Yes, the shoe bill does indeed look like some fucking prehistoric bird and doesn't look like it should be around with at the same time as an iPad. There was another thing I was gonna say. Fuck, I'm forgetting now. Can you vibe out a shoe bill? No, they look so angry. Also, birds kind of scare me, dude. They're fucking dinosaurs. Like, all birds are obviously descendants of dinosaurs, but I mean, a lot of animals are direct descendants of the dinos that existed, but birds especially so. Like, they look like evolution didn't take place. You know what I mean? I says as I'm eating a chicken. I forget what I was going to say about this coverage, but all right, let's continue. Sorry. I had a take on this, but
sucked out of the plane. And second, this happened just after takeoff, but if they'd been at cruising altitude, injuries might have been catastrophic. And that plane was almost new. It had been delivered by the manufacturer Boeing around 2 months earlier. And that's too soon for a sneaker to fall apart, let alone a multi-million-dollar aircraft. Now, Boeing CEO Dave Calhoun was quick to take responsibility, saying Boeing is accountable. But when pressed on exactly what had taken place, had an odd response.
How did an unsafe airplane fly in the first place?
Because a quality escape occurred.
Can you explain what that means?
Occurred.
What is a quality escape?
I think that's the description of what people are finding in their inspections. Anything that could potentially contribute to an accident.
What? Quality didn't escape, a part of the plane did. That's a terrible answer. When you are asked how an unsafe plane flew in the...
this is what happens when you hire specifically to increase shareholder value and elevate a person to that position specifically to increase shareholder value with no love for the game whatsoever. I will say it. This is the biggest problem with Boeing and every other corporation. Every single corporation in America is running into the same issues because capitalism, as JT correctly pointed out, is in crisis. It is in decay. We no longer have factories. We no longer have manufacturing facilities. We still do, obviously, and Boeing is one of them. But every single big American corporation actually does not care about its manufacturing output or the quality of the product that they're making or innovation. They only care about number crunching. That is what finance capitalism is. That is what finance capitalism does. If you put profits over everything else, if you only care about your stock price, you are always going to cut corners, and you're going to do it in a way that is flagrant, in a way that actually harms people. This is one of the most regulated sectors, chat. Commercial air travel would not exist or be profitable if it wasn't for the unimaginable amount of regulation that lets most normal people who should be terrified of flying feel safe. Remember, you're in a fucking tin can. Thousands of miles in the, not 1,000 miles, but 1,000 feet in the fucking air. The only way to fly in this magic thing and not feel like you're going to definitely die and you are doing something that is disrespectful to fucking God is if it is basically an assurance that it's basically, there needs to be an assurance that it says this is the safest form of travel. And it is, statistically speaking, it is the safest form of travel. Unimaginable that Boeing would drop that and cook a multiple billion-dollar, not just one sector, but multiple sectors.
In the first place, we need more information than essentially the plane was unsafe. Yeah, everybody knows that. There's a fucking hole in the side of it. And the exact nature of the escape is pretty alarming, given that, according to the preliminary investigation, 4 bolts that were supposed to keep the door plug in place were missing. And when Alaska checked their other MAX 9 planes, they found loose bolts on many of them. The next day, the FAA announced that every Boeing 737-9 MAX with a plug door would be grounded until they were inspected, which is a bit of a relief. And honestly,
I know exactly what it is. I haven't watched this yet, but here's a pre-watch moment. It will be one facility that they will point the finger of blame to. It will be literally one fucking outsourced facility that they lay the finger of blame on, even though it is actually the CEO and the attitude that the corporation has that caused that outsourcing, that cheaper outsourcing to begin with. None of those higher ups, with the exception of like maybe the CEO and some others, will ever take accountability. They will just hire someone else that will also still consistently push less quality assurance, less quality control, because they want to cut costs to improve shareholder value.
Kind of a fun image. I like to imagine stern FAA inspectors going up to each plane and saying, "You are grounded, missy. No in-flight TV for a month." And yes, planes are girls, because think about it, they always have snacks and constantly say, "Leaving right now," and then don't move for another 15 minutes. Case closed. It's beginning to feel like this might be a much broader issue within Boeing, because it comes on the heels of a years-long string of alarming incidents, from fires on board to a pair of massive crashes that were blamed on flawed Boeing planes. And just this week, the FAA issued a stunning order to the company.
The Federal Aviation Administration gave Boeing 90 days now to come up with a plan to address safety issues. This comes after a report released on Monday found employees did not understand their role in safety, and they feared retaliation for raising safety-related concerns. Those are big problems when you've got a factory that is making jets.
Yeah, of course. Although, to be fair, workers being unable to raise safety concerns is a big problem in a factory that makes anything. No one wants grocery stores selling Cap'n Crunch, oops, or rat poison. And all of this is striking for a company that genuinely used to be seen as one of the greatest in America, and that's still one of the country's largest exporters. So if a company this big and this important seems to be this troubled, tonight, let's talk about Boeing. And let's start with the fact that Boeing used to be synonymous with quality and craftsmanship. It was founded by William Boeing in 1916, and over the years it built nearly 100,000 planes for the Allied forces.
That's the craziest part. This is literally the apple of America's eye. This is like our pride, you know what I mean? Like, this is one of the most important American companies on the fucking planet. And now we're getting cooked by some fucking French company by the name of Airbus. Oh, look at me. Oui, oui. Bullshit. Merde.
the first stage of the Saturn V rocket, and Air Force One. But they're best known for revolutionising commercial aviation. In 1967, Boeing introduced the 737 and have made over 10,000 of them since. And the company's success rests heavily on its well-earned reputation for excellence, like in this video from an annual shareholder meeting.
The first step in making a difference is believing you can.
We make the impossible happen on a regular basis. So it can be done. You just have to think of a new way to do it. Let's just do it right, whatever it is. Quality, safety, environment, do it right and make it something that you can be proud of.
I wanted to develop products that had a global reach and a global impact. And I'm doing it now.
I mean, that sounds pretty good. We do the impossible? Great. Love the impossible. Let's just do it right? Yes, let's. Wrong feels like a bad way to do it. I want to develop a globally impactful product, and I did. Good for you. You're a little too close to the camera, but in general, I am on board. In fact, Boeing had such a great reputation for safety among pilots. There was even a common saying, if it ain't Boeing, I ain't going, which the company put on T-shirts, lanyards, and mugs that you can still buy on their website. All perfect gifts for someone who loves branded merch and does not love following the news. And that stellar reputation has been credited to the company's engineer-centred open culture. William Boeing himself once said, after noticing some shoddy workmanship on his production line, that he would close up shop rather than send out work of this kind. And one project leader in the 80s and early 90s is remembered for saying, no secrets, and the only...
Let me tell you. Some of you may have already realized that, you know, I have a deep connection to this company for some reason. That's not how shit goes, okay? Any longer.
The only thing that will make me rip off your head and shit down your neck is withholding information. And I'm sorry, but that should be the mug. You want to shift merch? That's how you do it. But it's pretty clear that we're a long way from that culture today. And most observers will trace the shift back to this pivotal event.
A major announcement today in the world of aviation. Yep. Boeing and McDonnell Douglas today announced they would join together to form the world's largest aircraft manufacturer.
This is, I believe, an historic moment in aviation and aerospace.
Yeah, the Sky Boys got business married. Boeing merged with McDonnell Douglas, who were primarily known for military planes and had a lousy reputation for commercial airliners, most notably the DC-10, which had multiple accidents resulting in over 1,100 passenger fatalities. And look, was merging with the McDonnell Douglas Aerospace Manufacturing Corporation / Murder Emporium that Boeing CEO's worst decision? Probably not, because he also, and this is true, married his first cousin. So the last decision I'd ask this guy to make is who it's a good idea to couple up with.
That's awesome.
And while Boeing was the acquirer in the partnership, it soon became clear that the McDonnell Douglas culture, which was much more cutthroat and profit-driven, was going to become dominant. Early on, the McDonnell Douglas management team even gave their Boeing counterparts a plaque featuring an Economist magazine cover about the challenges of corporate mergers, which sounds benign until you see that the actual cover was this picture of two camels fucking. And McDonnell Douglas execs added the line, "Who's on top?" And setting aside the weirdness of gifting your co-workers camel porn, it begs the question, what was going on at The Economist back then? Spare a thought for the employee who dreamt of doing business journalism only to find themselves digging through photos of horned-up camel sluts banging in the dirt.
Oh, he loves it.
A year after the merger was finalized,
he loves
Boeing
it.
announced
He
a new
loves it
stock...
so much. You know he loves it. You fucking perv. You
Bộ thể
goddamn
thao cốt tông sa tay.
You had to fucking put another furry moment, dude. He is such a nasty little freak bitch. He loves that shit.
Buyback program, taking company money that could have gone to making planes and using it to inflate stock prices instead. And even mechanics at the company noticed the culture shift.
There was a major campaign launched called Share Value. And the idea was that they wanted everybody to be aware of the stock price, and they wanted everybody working together to increase the stock value. Even in technical meetings, everything revolved around Boeing stock prices.
Yeah, that's not reassuring, because that's not where you want their priorities focused. No one wants to get on a plane and hear, "Good afternoon, this is your captain speaking. We had a few technical problems, but our maintenance crew has assured us that the stock price is still holding strong, so let's get this big metal tube full of you and your loved ones up into the sky, shall we?" And the culture change was solidified by the decision to relocate the corporate headquarters from Seattle, where their commercial planes were actually designed and built, 2,000 miles away to Chicago. Because, as their CEO put it, when their headquarters is located in proximity to a principal business, the corporate centre is inevitably drawn into day-to-day business operations. And yeah, it should be. You're essentially saying, hey, we're going to be making big business decisions over here, so we don't need to be bothered with you nerds and your keeping planes in the air bullshit. Now, CEO Phil Condit soon left the company amid a contracting scandal and was replaced by Harry Stonesifer, the former CEO of McDonnell Douglas. He was an aggressive cost-cutter who pushed Boeing's management to play tougher with its workforce and to introduce the slogan, less family, more team, which, frankly, would have been great advice for Phil Condit when he was choosing a romantic partner. Less family, Phil. You want to be a team, but, like, not one that's related by blood. But the problems with the whole stock price first approach soon became apparent during the production of the 787 Dreamliner. It was a new, lighter plane that Boeing announced in 2004, but Stonesifer drastically cut the R&D budget, you know, the money for creating the plane, even as the company authorised large stock buybacks and dividends for investors. Under his plans, the Dreamliner would be developed for less than half of what their previous new plane had cost. Boeing also sought savings by outsourcing production to about 50 suppliers, each of whom was responsible for managing its own subcontractors. So basically, the plan was for Boeing to create the plane the same way someone creates a gingerbread house from a kit, essentially assembling a bunch of pieces other people made, leading to a finished product that, structurally speaking, was always going to be a fucking mess. And years later, Boeing itself produced a promotional video that admitted that plan was a fiasco.
Executing a project of such complexity proved to be more than some suppliers could handle. Wrinkles were found in the composite skins from one supplier. Fasteners were incorrectly secured on sections of the tail. There were gaps between units that were supposed to fit tightly together.
We had our partners, and then they had partners who had partners, and the different cultures and the communication was very challenging and added a lot of complexity.
No, it's never a great sign when you're talking about the manufacturing process for a plane the same way a doomed open throttle...
For the record, this exact same process is how American manufacturers still operate. Except that's how they do, like, child slavery. Except they're doing that for, like, chocolate or palm oil or, you know, most things that you consume on a daily basis. Right? Which, by the way, they don't have to do that. This is something that they could do in-house. It's just that they don't want to do it in-house because when you subcontract out to a subcontractor who is also subcontracting, you get plausible deniability, and they're operating out of a low-cost region, and therefore that same low-cost region does not have the same standards for safety and security. It's constant profit seeking, all at the interest of increasing shareholder value.
Talks about their private life. We had our partners, and then they had partners who had partners.
Wait, what? Isn't it smart business to offload risk, though? No, man. No, it's actually bad business. It's bad for business. It's dropping planes. Hello? You are watching a 32-minute video about a company that used to be, like, one of the best airplane manufacturers. Business majors are so funny because they don't realize that their business strategy is failing until it's too late. It's like, well, right, leading up to the moment. Listen, right until the very moment that we had too much catastrophic failure and therefore the company bankrupted itself, things were going really well. You don't understand. Right until the very moment where people were like, I don't want to get on a Boeing plane ever again because this shit seems very unsafe, the shareholder value was skyrocketing. I don't get it. It's such a shame. I mean, it's such a shame, dude. That's all I can say about it other than, yeah, it's just shameful.
partners, and communication was very challenging and added a lot of complexity, and long story short, now we all have chlamydia. And on top of that, Stonecipher was forced to resign in the wake of an affair with a Boeing VP and was replaced by the company's third CEO in as many years, Jim McNerney, who, if anything, accelerated the cost-cutting. But despite all the setbacks from outsourcing, Boeing managed to roll out the Dreamliner on time in an elaborate ceremony in 2007, except there was one small catch.
We were all inside the factory with artificial lighting, big stage, Tom Brokaw, huge screens. Then they opened the doors of this giant assembly bay, and in rolls this beautiful, beautiful aircraft. We learned that the whole thing was a sham.
Beautiful, isn't it? Absolutely beautiful. I realized the doors were made of plywood.
This plane that we were admiring was completely a shell inside.
What I realized walking around it is that you could, look up in the wheel well and you could see daylight.
Wow! What a historic moment. So exciting to see the unveiling of the...
Bro, this is literally Elon Musk shit. This is literally Elon Musk shit. Elon Musk did exactly this, bro. Surely things are good and normal when some of the most successful stock performance, of course, I mean, not by like actual, other tangible results, but some of the most successful stocks saw big boosts with charlatans leading the helm.
The first airplane made entirely out of plywood and lies.
I love the chatters that are saying, oh, the robot person. No, Elon did that with his first car unveiling as well. Yeah. No, Elon has done it so many times, actually. He's done it so many fucking times.
The plane was supposed to take its first test flight within 2 months of that launch, but...
the Cybertruck, that was another good one.
Surprisingly, that didn't happen. In fact, the Dreamliner didn't carry commercial passengers for years, finally delivering planes 3 years late and $25 billion over budget. And almost immediately, there were problems.
Elon Musk is still doing this. The Cybertruck drivers are pay-as-you-go testers. Yeah, I genuinely don't understand how anybody trusts the Teslas. I don't get it. Like, I just simply do not trust Elon Musk. I think he's like such a libertarian freak that is so consistently shown to be a liar and a scammer and an abject failure that I just don't understand how anybody's like, yeah, no, I'll take the L on this. Like, I'll be your fucking tester.
Multiple planes had fires on board, including 2 in Boston and Japan.
Will has a Tesla? Yeah, he has the most premium Tesla, and at least that motherfucker's not doing FSD, you know what I mean? Also, my problem isn't with the other Teslas. My problem is mostly with the Cybertruck.
Within 9 days of each other, which investigations linked to a defective battery made by a subcontractor that Boeing had never audited. So the FAA grounded the Dreamliner, the first time it had grounded an airplane model since the McDonnell Douglas DC-10 in 1979. Again, making it pretty clear that the wrong attitudes had prevailed after the merger. Basically, the wrong camel came out on top. And investigations revealed that even people building the Dreamliner were worried about its safety. In 2014, Al Jazeera released hidden camera footage of a worker at a Dreamliner plant asking fellow employees a pretty pointed question.
Would you fly on one? No. You won't fly on one. Would you fly on one of these planes? Would you fly on one of these
Probably not. I wouldn't fly on one of these planes.
You wouldn't? Why wouldn't you?
Huh?
Why wouldn't you?
Because I see the quality going down around here.
Would you fly one of these?
Yeah, it's sketchy.
Sketchy?
Yeah, I probably would, but I mean, I'm having death wish, too.
It's true. Out of 15 workers he asked, 10 said they wouldn't fly on that plane. And honestly, that last guy is almost worse. Because if I had to pick between a plane that 2/3 of workers refused to get on and one that would only be ridden by Death Wish Dave, I'd pick the former every time. But while the Dreamliner had its problems, at least it never had a fatal accident. But that cannot be said for Boeing's next plane, the 737 MAX. In 2011, as Boeing was rolling out the Dreamliner, its main competitor, Airbus, was unveiling the A320neo, a fuel-efficient update of their already popular A320 planes, and it was a wild success. Boeing, caught completely off guard, quickly announced a new fuel-efficient plane it hadn't even engineered yet, the 737 MAX. They wanted to get it out of the door as quickly and as cheaply as possible. McNerney even had a catchphrase, more for less, which became the company's driving theme as it embarked on the MAX. And all the while, under McNerney and his successor as CEO, Dennis Muilenburg, Boeing continued to sign off on massive stock buybacks. From 2014 to 2018, Boeing diverted 92% of its operating cash flow to dividends and share buybacks to benefit investors, far exceeding the money that it spent on R&D for new planes. Workers on the production line for the MAX described a process that valued speed over safety, and one, a military veteran, worried that corners were being cut.
What words would you use to describe that factory at that point?
Dangerous, unnecessary, taking unnecessary risk.
He says he urged the
okay. Dangerous.
Boeing manager to shut down the factory for a few weeks to straighten things out. And what was his reaction to that?
And he said,
You know what's really fucking fraudulent about this entire process, by the way? We've been watching this for 60 minutes. There's a top of the hour ad break coming. Okay, it's going to be 3 minutes long. You're probably not going to see what I'm about to say right now unless you subscribe for $5 or for free. But like I said, 60 minutes in, not one mention of black people and how they are responsible. Black women, specifically, gay black women. Everybody knows my favorite commentator, Tim Pool, told me that it's gay black women that are responsible for this. And all I've seen is white motherfuckers so far. Where are the gay black women at? Where are the gay trans black women at? Where are they? They are the ones who made this fail. It's DEI. An anagram for die. Why is DEI not responsible for crashing the... What? I think this guy thinks that I'm being serious and not I'm joking. I'm not joking about the 3-minute ad break, so I probably shouldn't have said that because then people got serious about everything I'm saying. Yeah.
You know, we can't shut down. And then I kind of got mad and said, you know, I've seen military operations shut down for a lot less.
What was his reply to that?
Something I'll never forget. He said, well, the military is not a profit-making organization.
Wow. What a response, because in a way you're right, the military isn't a profit-driven culture.
I mean, it's pretty funny because, like, Boeing is the military, too, so I don't know what the fuck they're going on about. And also, secondly, if I want something that's good, okay, made to last, I'm not thinking of gear that the American military uses, not gonna lie. I feel like the guys that didn't think that their armored personnel carriers would need armor underneath the vehicle in Iraq originally are the smartest guys leading the fucking pack. You know what I mean? Because let me tell you something. It's not just the Marines that are eating the crayons out there, okay? Some of them fucking engineers are also eating the goddamn crayons. Like, the actual crayon eating grunts had to fucking resort to putting sandbags underneath themselves in the vehicles because IEDs kept fucking blowing their dicks off. Literally. Turns out you kind of need armor underneath the car when, you know, it's super easy to just like build a bomb out of marbles in a pressure cooker.
But they do have, pretty famously, a very high appetite for death and destruction. So if someone who worked there is going, whoa, slow down a bit, that seems like something that should give you pause. So the MAX was rushed through design and production, and with tragic consequences. On October 29th, 2018, a Lion Air flight bound for Indonesia carrying 189 people, including 3 children, disappeared from radar just minutes after takeoff and was found to have crashed into the water. No one on board survived. Investigations later revealed that the plane's safety had been compromised by a series of short-sighted decisions Boeing had made. Starting with the fact that to save money, Boeing decided it wasn't going to build a new plane, it was just going to rapidly
It took forever, but they finally figured out to build the bottom of the carriers with like a V or a wedge shape to direct the blast.
modify its existing 737 model, giving it new, much bigger engines. But that brought some significant complications.
Because these engines are bigger, they had to be positioned further forward and higher up on the wings. And so Boeing was worried about the plane getting into too much of a nose up, and then the plane could stall. So if it starts to pitch up, MCAS was designed to help the pilot level the plane out.
Yeah, they added a system called MCAS, or Maneuvering Characteristics Augmentation System. Very basically, when the plane came close to a situation in which it might stall, MCAS would, in technical terms, swivel the horizontal tail fin to lift the tail up and push the nose down, or in non-technical terms, make the plane go face down, ass up. But there was a fatal flaw.
MCAS, MCAS, scam. That's right. There's a lot going on here that we must investigate. I'm learning a lot about the way that letters work.
MCAS, which again could push a plane's nose down on its own, could be activated by a single sensor.
The angle of attack. Can Murat comment on the subject? No, because he's working. And two, no, I would not fucking ask him to comment on this subject.
Sensors protrude out of either side of the fuselage near the cockpit. If a happy birthday Mylar balloon gets stuck on that vane, it becomes unreliable. But believe it or not, we hit balloons, we hit birds, and all of these things are not uncommon.
It's true, the whole system could be compromised by a balloon. A testament to how problematic it is to use a single sensor, and yet another reason to hate balloons. Think about it. They're exhausting to inflate, they scare the shit out of you when they pop, and uninflated, they just look like a pile of clown condoms. Balloons are terrible. But it gets worse, because Boeing didn't tell pilots about MCAS. Because remember, they decided to market the plane to airlines as a money saver, and a massive selling point was that the MAX wouldn't require pilots to be retrained in a flight simulator. That's a pretty big expense for an airline, as it takes pilots out of the air for multiple days. Boeing was worried that if they emphasised MCAS as something new, it might require more training. So it told airlines and...
Dude, I think John Oliver does an incredible job of breaking down this otherwise pretty complicated story in a matter of 5 minutes. Truly impressive. Truly impressive how easily and masterfully the Last Week Tonight boys actually broke it down. Unironic. I've obviously read a shit ton about this. I've talked about this quite a bit. And I've never seen someone break it down so perfectly.
And regulators that the MAX was so similar to the old 737, simulator training wouldn't be necessary. And that is something even the mother of one of the Lion Air pilots whose flight crashed thought was a bit weird at the time.
I said, you haven't had a simulator training, how can you go for a MAX? And it is a more powerful engine. So without a simulator, how will you manage? He said, Mom, I've been given ground training. They have given me a training on iPad. I said, what, an iPad?
That is wild. It is bad enough that iPads are replacing half the staff at Panera.
Keep in mind, this is also concurrent with Boeing fleecing the U.S. military at a 30+ billion for the F-35, while the plane does barely a 1/3 of the original requisition. Yeah, no, it is really, really, really fucked up. I'm a firm advocate of permanently nationalizing Boeing. That's base though? No, it's not. It fucking sucks. It's so shitty. I hate the privatization of like formerly nationalized sectors. Like even NASA, another great example of a sector that should have been still should have been nationalized and kept national instead of being outsourced to private corporations. F-35 is Lockheed. Damn, this guy's like shitting on Boeing for the F-35. Fucked up. But I do still think that we should absolutely nationalize Boeing.
Brett. It is worse when they're replacing practical training for dangerous jobs. Boeing gave pilots a 2-hour iPad training course that never once mentioned MCAS. What's more, it wasn't in the manual at all, unless you count the glossary, which defined the term but didn't explain what it did.
Bro, money is so much tighter at NASA these days. We have to get like hand-me-down satellite platforms from the NSA for our new high-tech satellites. That's real, by the way, not joking. Dude, how many fucking space how many people work in what is the term? Why am I blanking out on this? No, there's like actually legit a bunch of people that work in aerospace in this chat, which is always shocking. Not everyone is saying fucking me, but I work for Boeing as an aero engineer. Do you work with Murat? I know that there's some HasanAbi heads that work at the same in El Segundo. I worked in NASA, but on the branding for Artemis. Yeah, there's a lot of fucking people in this chat that unironically do work in aerospace. I guess I forget. It is a fucking stadium full of people. So yeah, obviously. No, I'm not going to reveal where I already revealed too much. Sorry, chatter. Anyway. Tell Murat to stop chatting on his alt and go back to work. I wish. My dream is that one day Murat will watch me. Okay? He does not. He only watches Philip DeFranco. But yeah, I do. It's a massive industry, and I do basically cater to a stadium full of nerds. So it's not that shocking that there would be a lot of aerospace people in here. But you and Murat should switch jobs for a day and see if anyone notices. Yeah, totally. I just don't have the security clearances, so I don't know how that would work, but...
And it turned out that a faulty MCAS...
And would most likely... I feel like I'd go to jail.
...activation was what had doomed that Lion Air flight. And when American Airlines pilots met with Boeing executives after the crash and angrily pointed out no one had been told about MCAS, the answer they got was ridiculous.
These guys didn't even know the damn system was on the airplane, nor did anybody else.
We try not to overload the crews with information that's unnecessary.
I would think that there would be a priority on putting explanations of things that could kill you.
Exactly. How is information about a system that could crash the plane unnecessary? It's not all Fruit Loops are the same flavour, or identical twins don't have the same fingerprints, or if you give a mirror to a dolphin, they'll admire their own genitals. All of that is good information, but unnecessary for a pilot to know. But we put some software on the plane that might try and murder you. Feels important. In the aftermath of the crash, Boeing told US airline pilots that they'd have a software fix for MCAS ready within about 6 weeks. And the MAX was allowed to keep flying. But they didn't. The only thing they accomplished in those 6 weeks were, and you're never going to believe this, authorising a record $20 billion of stock buybacks. So
No, what? God, a tale as old as time, baby. Of course they did that. Of course they did that. Why? Well, because it's great. It's great, dude. All of a sudden, stock price goes.
Clearly, they were concerned about safety.
This is pure stock manipulation. For those of you who don't understand, stock buybacks is stock manipulation and used to be illegal until a handsome fella from California, who used to be a former union leader, as a matter of fact, came along and decided maybe it's not stock manipulation after all. That's right. This right here is stock manipulation. It's artificially boosting your stock prices. His name was Ronald McDonald Reagan.
Specifically, the safety of their fucking stock price. And so a little over 4 months after...
And reducing the float is not manipulation. Why was it illegal then? I hate that business nerds always talk about this I hate that fucking business nerds with permanent Reddit brain always talk about this as though it is it's just another way of you're basically describing stock buybacks as a separate thing in an effort not to say what it actually is. Literally a way to give tax-free value to shareholders.
While Boeing was still working on its 6-week software fix, Ethiopian Airlines Flight 302, a 737 MAX jet, crashed after MCAS activated erroneously again, killing everyone on board. And by that point, those pilots knew what MCAS was, but they still weren't able to correct its erroneous activation in time. 3 days later, the FAA finally grounded the MAX, but only after all these countries had first. It was grounded for almost 2 years until Boeing developed ways to make MCAS less error-prone and easier to override. And a damning congressional investigation later revealed internal messages showing that Boeing knew how dangerous MCAS was throughout the plane's development. In 2012, one of Boeing's own test pilots had failed to recover from MCAS activating in a flight simulator, a situation that he described as catastrophic. And some of the messages between Boeing employees were damning.
Hundreds of emails and instant messages show employees mocking the FAA, the company, and problems with the airplane. One writing, "This airplane is designed by clowns, who in turn are supervised by monkeys."
That's pretty bad. Although part of me wishes that he kept going there. They're designed by clowns, who are supervised by monkeys, who report to caffeinated toddlers, who are overseen by a bunch of floppy puppies, who are monitored by a wasted bachelorette party, whose boss is just a large inflatable tube man. So at this point, you might reasonably be asking, where the fuck are the regulators? Should the FAA have caught this before people died? And given that the answer to that is definitely yes, what happened? Well, the agency relied heavily on Boeing employees to vouch for the MAX's safety because they lacked the ability to effectively analyse much of what Boeing shared about their new plane. One employee even said he thought a presentation for regulators was like dogs watching TV because they didn't understand what they were seeing. And I really hope that's not true. I hope dogs do understand what they're watching on TV. Otherwise, I did those deep dives on squirrels, breathing out of a fucked-up little nose, and poodle anuses for no reason at all. And incredibly, much of the oversight was being done by Boeing itself.
For 5 decades, manufacturers like Boeing were allowed to use what they call FAA-designated inspectors. First, to certify that the planes were airworthy in the beginning, and then on the assembly line to inspect each plane as it went down the line. Here's the problem. Those FAA inspectors were employed by Boeing. There's a conflict of interest there.
Of course there is. Boeing was paying Boeing employees to regulate Boeing. It's the most incestuous relationship we've seen in this story so far, which is saying something, because remember, this guy was fucking his first cousin. And while this system of self-regulation...
Business people, is a free market, man. Prices change based on supply and demand. Also, business people, we are buying a significant portion of our stock back, artificially affecting the perceived supply of our stock and ultimately under the underlying value in our company. Yeah. My favorite is when people make stock buybacks seem like it's an innocuous thing and not specifically to artificially boost the stock price, but instead to move in the direction of like privatization. Oh, Hassan, well, what happens when someone buys the company and takes it off the fucking stock market? Like, okay, well, why aren't they doing that?
Has been in place for decades. It was supercharged from 2005 onwards after Boeing successfully lobbied to reduce government oversight of airplane designs, basically allowing it to regulate itself even more. And unsurprisingly, several of these Boeing-employed representatives of the FAA have said they faced heavy pressure from managers to limit safety analysis and testing so the company could meet its schedule and keep down costs. At every point along the way, the FAA either delegated responsibility to Boeing or gave them the benefit of the doubt, which hopefully they will never do again. Because Boeing, like so many American companies, seems to be coasting on a reputation it built up over decades, even as it squanders it quarter by quarter. And if you're thinking, hey, John, don't you work for a prestige company that got taken over and had the name Max slapped on its signature product? Hey, I don't know what you're talking about. This situation is completely different. New business daddy is so mad at us all the time.
I don't understand. Like, surely there's no issue with making companies self-regulate. I mean, what's next? Are you going to tell me that, like, the EPA has allowed plenty of factories that work with chemicals, like, I don't know, like DuPont, for example, that also self-regulates with the toxic pollutants that they utilize? No. That would be ridiculous. Is there a problem with that too? Please, don't tell me. There's no way. There's no way. I mean, surely, okay, let's not do self-regulation, but at least let's let the specialists that work in these companies then go work at the regulator side, or vice versa. Hire people from the regulatory agencies. That way, it'll be the most knowledgeable people, right? Surely that's another good way to do it. Oh, wait, are you telling me? I'm now finding out that is exactly how this works.
So, what now? Well, the truth is, Boeing's not going out of business anytime soon. It's one of just 2 major commercial airplane manufacturers in the world. So we don't need them to disappear. We need them to get better. The key question is, can they fundamentally change? Well, thanks in part to pressure from the families who lost loved ones in those crashes, Congress did pass bipartisan legislation rolling back some of Boeing's ability to oversee its own planes, and it's encouraging that the FAA is now insisting Boeing come up with a plan to address safety in 90 days, though we'll see what that brings. And Boeing will say it knows that it's made mistakes in the past, but that under the leadership of their CEO, Dave Calhoun, you know, Mr. Quality Escape, they are approaching the challenges they currently face with a new spirit of accountability and complete transparency. But it's really hard to trust that, given that Calhoun served on Boeing's board since 2009 through many of the worst decisions you've seen tonight. And there's also the fact that 737 MAX 8 and 9 planes are still flying despite an FAA directive last August highlighting a serious new issue, warning that if pilots on the MAX used an engine anti-icing system, what one pilot described to us as the equivalent of a car's back windshield defogger, in dry air for more than 5 minutes, it could shatter the engine's housing, causing a hazard to window passengers, decompression, and potential loss of control of the airplane. And while Calhoun claims he's very confident they'll have a fix...
Yeah, I'm sure that this guy won't then turn around and, like, I don't know, do another acquisition or something in an effort to desperately bring up the stock prices, right? Like, I mean, certainly that's not the direction that they're heading in. I mean, that would be ridiculous. That would be crazy. Wait, what? Boeing and Spirit Aerosystems have always been integrally tied, even though Spirit has been its own company since 2005. Around 70% of Boeing 737 is built by Spirit, a company that originally split from Boeing. At least one of their outsources they'll bring back into the fold.
Which is such great news. In the meantime, Boeing is asking pilots once more to be the last line of defense. One that we spoke to even sent us a photo of this Post-it note he uses in his cockpit to remind him to turn off the anti-icing system, along with an iPhone timer. And that is too much pressure for a fucking Post-it note. They shouldn't be the last line of defense against plane crashes. They should be the last line of defense against Sheila from marketing eating your Chobani out of the work fridge. Boeing whistleblowers who want this company to get better have repeatedly said it won't change until it has new leadership. And Boeing may not be able to coast on its reputation much longer, as demonstrated by the fact that on booking sites like Kayak, you can use this menu to select specific Boeing models and exclude them from your flight search. They've actually moved that filter up the page following a recent spike in usage. And you know things are bad when the general public is getting this knowledgeable about specific plane models. Look, it is pretty clear something has to change at Boeing, and it has to be at the top of that company. Because if you are truly too big to fail, That should mean that you are big enough to spend the time and resources required to fix the culture that you have destroyed. And in the meantime, the very least you can do is advertise the kind of company you are in a much more accurate way.
At Boeing, we make the impossible happen on a regular basis.
At Boeing, we take pride in our work.
At Boeing, we... Sorry, can you back the camera up a little bit? Really close. At Boeing, I'm sorry, it feels very tight.
At Boeing, we believe the first step in making a difference is believing you can.
And I'm not talking about any difference. I'm talking about a positive difference in share price. The share price needs to go up and stay up, like our planes do almost all of the time.
Since its founding, Boeing's been built on quality, safety, and trust.
And then we thought, let's try something new.
I joined Boeing because I wanted to invent things no one ever dreamed of. And they told me if I wanted to do that, what I needed was to invent a time machine to 1992.
I did tell him that, and I think the joke landed, like our planes do, almost all of the time.
Whatever it is we do at Boeing, let's do it right.
Or let's do it close enough to right that no one can tell the difference from the outside, and then everyone will just keep their mouths shut.
The engineers don't always agree with our business decisions, and we encourage them to speak up. And when they do, I usually say, "What? I can't hear you! Our offices are so far from Seattle!"
Airplane design is about precision, care, attention to detail, and then someone telling you to work so quickly you make the whole thing vulnerable to a fucking balloon.
We like to cultivate a profit-driven philosophy here at Boeing, and we've got the camel porn to prove it.
You put finance people in the top positions in a company, you're going to get finance people results. Okay? That's it. Auditors and the purpose of ensuring companies are following accounting practices are bastardization. You cannot have impartiality when you also get paid by the person you audit. I will always be very overly critical of auditors and how the accounting industry views them to such a high degree.
Who's on top? We are.
Look, man, I'm doing what I can. I try to report everything I see to the FAA. See that? There's a bolt missing here. So I'm gonna report it.
At Boeing, we... Oh, hold on. Get a text. Yeah.
Wait, you work for the FAA?
Yeah, I do the FAA's job, but I actually work for Boeing. It's super allowed.
It's super allowed.
Oh, apparently there's a bolt missing.
It's fine. Do you even know how many bolts there are on an airplane? Too many. You lose one or two, that's a rounding error.
The boys on the factory floor call me Usain, because I'm all about the bolts. Also because I work really fast. Like scary fast. Like people should be scared about how fast I work. Is it okay if I take these home?
Quality is at the forefront of everything we do at Boeing. And sometimes it's so far in front that it escapes. Whoops! Quality, come back! Get back here, you!
I'm not sure I'd want to get on one of these planes.
Oh, I definitely wouldn't get on one.
I would.
Yeah, but that's different because you have
a death wish thing.
Yeah, the death wish thing.
Mm-hmm.
We're Boeing, and we're focused on the important things. Raising stock prices, increasing stock prices, making stock prices bigger, or elevating stock prices. Delivering value to shareholders at any and all human cost.
Until your stock prices go down 20% since January after the Alaskan flight incident, and then you have to make quick decisions in order to move the conversation desperately away, making it seem like you're actually reabsorbing a supplier, a supplier that formerly used to be a part of your company, in an effort to make it seem like there's actual confidence in the company still, and that they are doing their very best to ensure that their manufacturing capabilities are up to snuff, like the former Boeing of yesteryear. Although that reabsorption will probably come with mass layoffs, which will also then improve your stock prices a little bit more. It's no different than any other company. Yes, of course. Of course. It's no different than any other company. That's what every company does.
Boeing.
And it's bad.
We went to business school. Get